Shalom, WJC family. It is time for our weekly Torah talk. The Torah portion that we will be reading in Shul this week is Vayikra. That is the first parsha, the first Torah portion in the book of the same name. And the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, deals mostly with sacrifices, deals with the priestly activities that took place in the tabernacle, the tent of meeting that would wander through the desert, and then eventually in the temple in Jerusalem. I was privileged to be able to travel to Jerusalem last week on a UJA Federation trip for rabbis. Some 20 plus of my colleagues and I were able to be in Jerusalem to try and understand what is going on in Israel right now with these protests, with this judicial reform. And we were able to meet with people from all across the spectrum of political views and all up and down the spectrum of sort of political position, from ministers of the Knesset all the way down through people in think tanks and academics, and all the way to the average person on the street, some who were protesting and some who were not. And while we learned a lot about the government, I think even more importantly, we learned a lot about society, about what is happening in Israel right now. We met with people from so many different factions of society, and really came to understand the splits that are really underneath what's going on in Israel. And they relate to Vayikra. And here's how. Vayikra, the Torah portion, is about sacrifice. The second verse of the Torah portion, we read, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, right? God is talking to Moses. He says, speak to the Israelite people. Ve'amarta alehem, say to them, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban l'Adonai. A person, when he brings from among you korban, a sacrifice to God, min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, from your cattle, from your herd, min hatzon, from your flock, takrivu et korbanchem. She'll bring them as an offering. So the question is, there's a couple of questions on this. First of all, what does it mean to bring a korban? Korban is from the word karov. How is bringing an animal to God going to make me feel closer either to God or to the people around me? And the second question on the verse that we're going to look at, because it's important for the point, is that the tense, the tense of the verb changes from singular to plural, or the case of the verb by tense case, the number of people it applies to. Ki yakriv, when a person brings, takrivu et korbanchem, you, plural, shall bring your sacrifices. So the question, why do we change from singular to plural? So the first piece I want to bring is a commentary from Sforno. Sforno is lives around the year 1500 in Italy, and in commenting on this Yakriv, what does it mean? Why does a sacrifice, bringing an animal, make you closer to God? Sforno says, when he brings himself close to God, right? Adam ki yakriv mikem, not when you bring an animal, but when you bring yourself close to God by means of confession of sins and humbling oneself, right? That ultimately, only once you've humbled yourself in actuality, only then can you bring a sacrifice and feel this sense of closeness. And he says this concept is connected to the verse from Psalms, Zivchei Elohim Ruach Nishbara, that an offering or sacrificial meat will only be acceptable to God when you've made it with crushed spirit. And Sforno goes on to tell us the psalmist means that God is not interested in the fools who offer sacrificial animals if they've not first humbled themselves. In other words, in order to bring yourself close to God, in order to bring yourself close to something sacred, you need humility. Humility. Right? When you're acting in your own self-interest before the interest of those around you, you can't make a korban. You can't become close. And what I witnessed in Israel is a society that everyone is so concerned about their self, about their position, about their grievances, that, people say, there should be a compromise. There's no room for compromise when someone can't humble themselves. Compromise is an attempt to come close together. And as Sforno tells us, you can't come close together unless you found a way to compromise. So too, we find a similar lesson in the Kli Yakar. So Sforno was in Italy around 1500. Kli Yakar is in Poland just a little bit later, around probably 1575-ish. And he's concerned about the changing from singular to plural. Right, when a person brings a sacrifice and then it changes to plural, what does the Kli Yakar tell us it's trying to remind us? It's saying that it switches to plural to remember the first people who bring sacrifices in the Bible. Do you remember who that is? Who are the first people to bring sacrifices in the Bible? They were brothers. And it didn't work out so well. Of course, we're talking about Cain and Abel. So here, as God is giving the command at the very beginning of Vayikra of how sacrifices will be made, the Kli Yakar said, God's hinting us to remember Cain and Abel, who stumbled, says the Kli Yakar, when they brought their offering. Cain stumbled because he didn't bring his best crops, it says. And actually, it says Abel also stumbled because only when he saw Cain making sacrifices did he rush to make the best sacrifices to outdo his brother. This is Kli Yakar's interpretation. The point is, you can think you're doing something really good, what's best for the nation, what's best for humanity if you're Cain and Abel, and you're sacrificing, I'm sacrificing for this country, I'm sacrificing for this people, and still, what do you end up with? Brother fighting brother. And it seems to me, sadly, heartbreakingly, this is the situation that I witnessed in our trip to Israel. Ultimately, it seemed that most people are trying to bring a sacrifice. People from all different positions think they are doing what is best for the country. In fact, think that they may even be causing this strife, that is the sacrifice on behalf of this nation. But ultimately, are they heeding the warning of the Kli Yakar? Are they bringing a society together around shared sacrifice to bring everybody closer to that which is sacred, however they interpret that? Or is this a situation where ultimately everyone thinks that they know what's best, everyone thinks that they've been slighted the most, that they have the most grievance, that they have the most to lose, and ultimately, while they think they're doing what's best for their country, ultimately we'll end up with a case of brother against brother. Chas v'chalila, it shouldn't happen. So as we turn to Parshat Vayikra, I pray for the welfare of the Jewish people in Israel, of all the people, Jewish, Arab, and otherwise, in the land of Israel, in the state of Israel right now, that the leadership, that everyone can find that humility, can remember that ultimately it's only when we lower ourselves, when we humble ourselves, when we come with crushed spirit, that the good we mean to do becomes good. When we bring our sacrifice, when we do it with sacred passion, when we think we have the right way, I have the right way, and I deserve for my way to be the way, not only is compromise not possible, but we end up like Cain and Abel, brother facing brother. May that be avoided. May wiser minds prevail. May the korbanot offered for the land of Israel not be the korbanot of fools, but instead be those of wise people concerned about the welfare of all. May that happen speedily. Shabbat Shalom.